Hello, all. Welcome to a new edition of Black Box Talks. We've been doing the thesis talks over at our venue at 950 South Campus, but today we're going to visit some designers in New York at the ICFF Furniture Fair. And so we got a treat for you. We have Cory Grosser on.
How are you?
I'm doing good. So, by the way, I'm James Mraz. I'm Associate Chair of Graduate Furniture, Lighting Fixtures, and Spatial Design. And Cory Grosser is an Art Center alum and credible furniture designer. And he's in New York launching a show right now. So, how you doing, Cory?
I'm doing well. I'm at the ICFF in New York, which is the International Contemporary Furniture Fair. So middle of a busy trade show.
Awesome. So, tell us about these furniture fairs. I mean, I know there's a furniture fair in Chicago and Milan, and this is the big international New York fair. How do they all kind of measure up, and what do you expect? What's happening there today?
Well, there's kind of like a trade show calendar, I would say. And this is the May kind of version of this calendar.
Hmm.
Also, although there's also one in the UK right now called Clerkenwell Design Week. And then there's the Scandinavian Stockholm Furniture Fair, 3 days of Copenhagen. Milan, of course, is probably the biggest. And then there's fairs in Cologne, Germany. So, there's this whole, and then NeoCon is in Chicago next month. Each one kind of either focuses on a particular territory or a particular kind of, category of furniture. So this one's pretty mixed up between residential, hospitality, and commercial furniture.
Hmm.
And it's, pretty New York influenced. So yeah.
Great. So, what are you doing today? What are you launching today?
So I'll flip my camera so you guys can see what's going on.
Okay.
Okay. Walk a little. Let me see. So um, this is Bernhardt Design, a company that I designed for, and it's also had quite a long relationship with Art Center, which is really cool. And this is a new sofa group that we're launching called Sunset, named after the Sunset Strip, of course. And it's kind of a modular lounge collection. And then there's these beautiful tables by a designer named Daniel Germani called Ice that are super popular, and they're getting a really good response as well. So that's what's happening.
Can you go a little deeper into the inspiration of it? I think some of your work is kind of more basic, vernacular, a little bit Southern California, things like that.
Yeah,
Down on that a little
sure.
bit.
So we kind of trademarked this term happy minimalism.
Hmm.
So, and it's an idea of minimalism, right? But minimalism can be sometimes austere, a little bit cold. And to me, that didn't really vibe with California or maybe my own, personality. So happy minimalism is more of like a California kind of minimalism idea. So this, obviously the shapes, the construction, it's super simple. But it's also, I guess, trying to be more friendly and approachable. I think this one in particular, if I switch again, you can see like it's pretty pure in its geometry, but it's also really kind of bold and graphic. It's slightly retro, I would say. It's got some references to molded furniture in the 60s and 70s, what was happening in Italy as they were starting to develop molded furniture. And so I had this kind of like 60, 70 idea. So that's why we kind of have this Sunset Strip reference.
Yeah, it's very cool. Now, do you imagine this? Is this a residential piece? Do you see, or is this a commercial, or what kind of environment do
This
you see this
company
going
is
to?
really more focused on commercial furniture. So furniture for workplaces, higher education, some hospitality. Um, but I think this scale fits really good in the residential. It's probably it's I would say what we call a universal project, meaning it can go in many different spaces. So I think it's also cool for home, and some of the stuff I designed with them, it's not great residential, let's say, but I think this one, is really multi-market.
Like what trends are you seeing coming to market right now?
Um, I mean, I don't know, I don't know if trends is the right kind of way to think about it. Furniture works a little bit slower than fashion. That's kind of always moving. So you have like these currents, these multi-year kind of currents. Um, but we're definitely like in a little bit more a human phase of design. When I graduated from art center quite a while ago now, things were super architectural, super flat, super straight, and really there's a little bit, it's more human, it's a little bit softer. And we've been kind of in that current for a while. um, I think
Yeah,
materiality and sustainability, if you want to use that term, are have become more ingrained in the way that we design and the way we think about things. So that's great. I wouldn't call that a trend, but I would call that a very positive kind of anchor, that's happening. So that's cool. Um, but if you walk around, you'll see things of all different styles and all different kind of attitudes, and I think that that's really cool.
we had this idea, I think, just modern nomads, and we're working from home now, different environments, and then COVID kind of pushed people back, home. And so, how do you see this sort of settling down, or is this something where we're going to be more, knowledge workers, be more nomadic and working from home place, or is that the kind of furniture you like to work with or see, or what do you see in that regard?
Um, I guess in a selfish way, the more people that move back to the office, the better things go for me. As someone that's focused on workplace furniture, let's say, or at least has quite a bit of workplace furniture in the market. Um, and I think being a spatial experience designer, I think we understand how important a space is for the development of a corporate culture or an organizational culture and a brand. So I think what you're seeing is a lot of companies forcing their employees back. And of course, sometimes employees don't want to come back. But I think there is a lot of positive benefits for corporate culture and for brand reasons, and also for productivity, and our idea of like social connection and how we socially connect. So I'm more a proponent of the hybrid work model, where
Ah,
you can do some work at home and some is more private, and then you come together for more the socialization of work. So what we've seen is this idea of the workplace has changed, and the need for social furniture has really increased. So that's why a kind of a big sofa setting like this can be used in all these different scenarios, because it's really about the way that people kind of connect and come together.
yeah. I mean, that's a great insight. So I guess I'm wondering, are you seeing furniture kind of change in terms of more of a harder edge, or do they have aspects of domestic, in the kind of workplace?
Yeah, you see way more domestic oriented furniture in the workplace, because if a company is saying, look, you have to come back, like you have to start to give them things, you have to give them a reason to come back, like a reason why being is more valuable than being at home, and I think that takes investment on the part of companies, and it takes a really good design strategy for that to happen. But it's not only a workplace. Like you'll see these hybrid spaces, like let's say a hospitality space. So you have a hotel lobby where people, this nomadic worker, might need to sit down and write emails or do work, and so that also has influences on the ways that lobbies are designed. So this mixing of where you work and how you socialize and where you socialize has created a really interesting opportunity for designers like me to create products and pieces that solve these issues.
Yeah. I mean, that's really interesting. I mean, you're in New York City right now, sort of the home of the boutique hotel,
Yeah.
when lobbies are filled with art furniture. So are you seeing that more across between the art furniture, really much more kind of in the realm of what you're working on now? Are you seeing these kinds of spaces?
I would say a lot of brands, you know, hotel brands, let's say, they might have statement pieces that may be more avant-garde, but they're also really thinking about the functionality of how a lobby, for example, works. So sure there's a little bit of showmanship in this, which I think is really cool, but then there's also a layer of functionality and how people can work because stay at a boutique hotel, you actually also have to use that boutique hotel. So I think it's it's an interesting mix.
We really work with strong narratives and industrial design, and it makes me think that the work you're doing, it has a more open-ended kind of narrative aspect to it, allowing the user to kind of maybe determine like how they want to use the pieces.
Well, there's two things I would say. There's selling furniture or specifying furniture, and there's using furniture. So in my world, right, like we need to sell it before people can use it. And so narratives and the stories behind a piece or about a piece, I think helps us get the pieces specified or into certain spaces. And once they're in certain spaces, then they become used. And the person that uses a piece of furniture might not have to understand the story of the furniture, but the person that buys a piece of furniture has to probably understand the narrative. So I would say they both have a role, they're just different.
I mean, that's really intriguing. I haven't heard that before. That's almost kind of an alchemy in a way. You have to really kind of speculate,
Yep.
right? You know, you have the narrative, which I guess the inspiration, right?
Yep.
And then the narrative, you,
Yep.
but then you kind of speculate or project in the future how it could possibly be used.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about the user that's going to sit on a sofa or use a small table, you know, if it looks cool and it does what they want and it feels good around their body and they're there for 5 minutes, and I think that's great. You know, that's enough. But the selection of those pieces where they have to go with everything else and they have to fit the space and maybe represent the brand, it works in a way maybe on uh, both a conscious and a subconscious level. I think, you know, we have to consider all of those things. And when we design things, we're very focused on the understanding that these two groups are not the same. And the brand that makes the furniture is also part of this as well. Like, it's, of course, my DNA and my kind of authorship, but the brand is an editor, right? So it's an author editor relationship and how we work back and forth between author and editor.
That sounds pretty complicated, actually. So, you know, there's sort of, there's the Cory Grosser, you know, brand or, you know, moves that you have, and then you have the brand, but then you're really working with the kind of emotion and psychology.
If you take this happy minimalism kind of philosophy, let's say, right? Some brands are going to share that philosophy and other brands are not, you know? Connect and work with and collaborate with brands that share our philosophy. And it doesn't mean it's the only philosophy, but we are in a way selective, and a brand would be selective about working with us because we share a similar philosophy. And that philosophy, for me, I had someone tell me once that oh well, that's, you know, that's a trend. I'm like, this is not a trend. Like, this is a career philosophy, or you know, it's never changing. You know, the manifestation of that philosophy might change, but the underlying philosophy won't.
I mean, I love that a lot. I'd like to have a deeper dialogue with you, you know, in a more quieter setting, you know.
Yeah.
um, the idea of trend versus philosophy. And I think it's really important for young designers to hear this too, because I think, you know, really working, especially when you're in school too, right, is really working on your philosophy, because otherwise you're just chasing trends, I believe, you know. And I
Yeah.
think this, when you have that kind of, you can maybe call it an ideology or a, you know, sort of conceptual nature of your work, but I think that could, right, that's going to really drive and evolve too. It's not that you would be stuck to this one sort of theory of your work, right? But then you have the kind of the thought of it, which seems like that's what you're talking about. What you have, that feels like, I feel like you have the confidence with that sort of deeper, you know, sort of philosophy that trends don't matter so much you kind of work with, you kind of like dance with that, but I think
Well, I
that's
think as you grow older, you
what's
see
that.
trends come. As you grow older, you see trends come and go. And it's when you're talking about the arc of your career or the length of your career. If you're following every trend, I think it's called. So yes,
Yeah,
if you think about it on a little
I
bit
mean, if
longer line.
yeah,
But the other thing to say, the saying called il mano, and it means your hand, right? So it's also this idea of happy minimalism also relates to me and the way that my mind and my eyes and my hands kind of think about design. So it's not only an intellectual philosophy, but I think for young designers, thinking about what you're good at or how you want to see the world or the way that you frame the world can also influence the way that you build your own ideas about your career and about and your own DNA. Like we all have a DNA, where we come from, what we're interested in, what we like, what type of clothes we like to wear, what type of food we like to eat. If you slow down, I tell my students, slow down and start to really think about why you make your choices, because they can influence your philosophy. I think that there is a instinctual level. It's not only an academic or a decision you make. There is kind of an instinctual or natural kind of component to this idea.
yeah. I mean, and I guess, I mean, could you maybe add on to this in terms of like, how do you help students develop a critical filter for what they're seeing, like what's good, what's bad, or they even view things that way?
I would start with your gut, right? Like,
Okay.
most people don't walk around and see things and ask themselves, well, hey, I love that. And then they walk by. That's it. But as a designer, you have to be a little bit more curious and say, hey, what's stopping? What's going on? Like, why? What is that about that, whatever thing that, like, why does it resonate with me? And if you do this over and over and you get into the habit of doing this, you start to see themes and trends that start to repeat. And as you grow as a designer, you decide if you want to design to those ideas or if you want to design against those ideas. So I guess two things. The first is being curious, and the second is being conscientious of what you're seeing and what you're feeling. So you got to tune in a little.
And now what I'm learning about you too is that these strong narratives are really important to keep to go back to.
I think, of course, your work changes and it morphs, and that should be right. But it's having a philosophy or an idea or a belief about design, which you may at some point want to change. I think that's totally cool as well. Is different than just not having any kind of, you know, just being a little bit like a dartboard all over the road, right? I think a little bit of structure, even early in your career, about the type of design that you want to do, the type of companies you want to work with, the type of projects you want to work on. Early in your career, you can't always choose those things, but surely they can be goals and targets that can ground you. And I always suggest do that. Like, what do you love? What
Yeah.
would you love to design?
I mean, it sounds like,
And how would you love to
yeah,
design it?
right. Yeah, it sounds like you really develop a strong narrative, but kind of be simple, kind
Yeah.
of, kind of simple and move and be fluid with yourself, really.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying. The trend, but just yourself, your own gut, your own feeling.
Also, James, we have to mention, like, this is fun. Design is supposed to be fun, right? This is a cool career.
Yeah.
Like, being a creative is a blessing. And I see so many students today, they're just so stressed out about whether they're doing it right or doing it wrong or meeting this trend or meeting that
Yeah.
trend. And I would say, hey, like, try to have fun. The creative process is super hard. It's super rigorous. It's often very slow and tedious, but you have to find fun in the creative process.
Yeah.
Like, number one,
No,
have fun.
yeah, I love the way you're talking about it. It's really not trend at all.
Yeah.
It's really more about following your gut and really,
Yeah.
creating, authentic to yourself and to the work that you do, and getting it out there. But then, of course, you've been out here doing this, and you're an iconic furniture designer, and so you have a kind of a more intuition,
I would say though that these things you start practicing when you're younger, and then as you spend more time, it gets a little bit easier and easier in a way, and you know what to do quicker, and you know what tools, or at least you learn about yourself as a designer and know what your strengths and weaknesses are. Um, yeah, but I, I I I still think no matter how where you are in your career, being mindful about what you're doing and being not being afraid to be instinctual, but also being mindful about
yeah,
what you're doing and why. I is a really good skill to kind of begin to pick up.
yeah. Thanks a lot, Cory. I usually like end these conversations asking, our guests to give some advice to students, but I think you're all about that. You're very giving and sharing it.
Always open, James, for I think my favorite part about being in an academic experience is like helping young designers launch their careers, because I know how tough it is. I remember, and anything I can do to boost young designers, or designers at the beginning arc of their career. That's what I love.
Cory, where do you find flashes of insight?
I guess as the advice I gave, I try to really notice things, and I see things, and I try to catalog them on paper in my mind, and just when I see things around the world, I take care of those. To me, they're like a little bit of fuel for the future, and I don't know when. The way I work is super visual, right? So
Yeah.
to me, it's I think if my eyes went, I couldn't really be a designer. I would lose that. So I'm very visual, and I really care about the things that I see.
Thanks a lot, Cory. Hey, so are you seeing anything that's surprising you so far?
I mean, I yes and no. The one last thing maybe that I'll say about this job is, for me, it's a lot about people, right? So David's, of course, very good at seeing all the furniture, right? He's very great. Uh, and maybe I sometimes come to these things and become very social. So I spend a lot of time seeing people. So one thing that surprises me, it's all the old friends and the people that, now that maybe I've known for 25 years, that we had a show together in the beginning, or we did this together, or we met at this place. Um, and for me, that's always, maybe the time is surprising, James. I don't know.
Yeah. Hey, well, thanks a lot for spending time with us. We really appreciate it. I know you're actually right in the mix right now. You're doing your thing. You're meeting other folks, designers, and you're launching that incredible piece right now. So
My pleasure,
have a great show.
man.
Appreciate
This
it.
was great.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Soon. Have a
I'll
good
see you
one.
when I get back. All right.
All
Cheers.
right. Take care, Gordon. See
Bye
you.
bye. Bye
All
bye.
right.